the things. It's so distracting when things pop up on your screen when you're talking to your screen. Um, so anyway, I thought we could do a quick name, organization you're with, city or village or wherever that you are calling in from, and go from there. And I'm going to actually start with me, Caitlin, and Jim, and then jump into the rest of you all. I'm Karen. I'm the assistant director at the Arts Board, and I get to work with the creation and presentation applicants most directly. As of the four of our staff, I'm the one who gets to do that most directly. And with me is someone who gets to work with them a little more indirectly, and that is Caitlin.
Hi, everyone. I'm Caitlin Burrell. I'm the Folk and Traditional Arts Coordinator at the Arts Board, and I get to just provide some technical assistance as needed, mostly.
She has one of those amazing brains that work well with our Smart Simple online application platform, for which I'm deeply grateful. And then also with us on the screen here is Jim O'Connell. Jim, would you just introduce yourself for a sec?
Hi, I'm Jim O'Connell, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I currently teach arts management to university undergraduates at UW-Stevens Point. And I was one of the original creation and presentation grant panelists. And I have had the privilege of serving on grant review panels for the creation and presentation program a number of times since then.
Indeed. So he's said that he would be willing to just kind of sit back, and if there are any insights that he can offer you from the point of view of the people that we will be reviewing these applications, which is a rare opportunity, he'd be willing to do that. And I said, yes, thank you. So let's go and do a quick intro. Lori, why don't you two start?
Sure. Hi, I'm Lori Gramling. So I'm the executive director of La Familia de Arte. We're a community-based arts group right here in Milwaukee, right in Clark Square, which, if you're not familiar with the area, we are 1.5 blocks south of the Domes. And here with me.
And my name is Scott Dragon, and I am a supporter of La Familia.
Yay, thank you. Thank you, Lori and Scott. Jessica, let's go to you next.
All right, I'm Jessica Muller. I'm the development officer for the Grand Oshkosh. We are Wisconsin's most historic performing arts theater, and it's right here in downtown Oshkosh. We are incredibly beautiful, and it's a small, intimate theater, and we just love our community with our whole hearts. So
thank you. And thank you for taking the baton and tackling CNP.
yeah,
and then Joe Knott. Great. Dustin, would you please come next?
Yeah, hello everybody. My name is Dustin Olson. I'm a gift officer for the Mabel Tainter Theater in Menominee, Wisconsin. So I'm relatively new to the position, and there's a relatively new position for the organization. So kind of just getting our heads around what funding opportunities are available.
So we have two of our jewel box theaters in the room here. Great, thank you. Reese, would you please go next?
Sure. Hello, everybody. I'm Reese Ortoon. I am in Wausau, Wisconsin, and I guess I was a one of the original members of we're called Center Stage Band and Show Choir. We are an adult show choir, one of very few in the nation, and we became Center Stage after a company bought out Wausau Insurance and decided not to continue with this. So we have, for the last 17 years, been growing, finding new opportunities to bring our music. And right now we are working on the annual production the end of September, which means we're heavy into choreography. We've learned most of the songs. And I am the fundraising chair, and they look to me to make sure that the bills get paid. So I'm really looking forward to hearing more about how we can use the Wisconsin Arts Board for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Reese. McKinley, would you please go next?
Yes. Hello, my name is McKinley Ullman. I am the PAC director of the Port Washington Saukville Performing Arts Center, tied to the Port Washington Saukville School District. My position is fairly new. The PAC was brand new, renovated right before COVID hit in 2019, and they've had no staff members. The the arts teachers, choir and band, were the ones kind of running everything with the PAC. So I'm in a brand new position as well, and just looking at the opportunities that are out there to really get things kicking. So thank you for hosting this today.
Thank you. And Chris, would you please go?
Hi, I'm Chris Cope, and I'm a volunteer with the Park Center in Hayward, Wisconsin. And the park is an old historic theater that now serves as the venue for the area's arts, music, theater, and things like that. And so it sounds like I'm the only person that's not a paid staff on this Zoom call today. So,
All righty, thank you. Yes, so did everyone, is there anyone here who has not had a chance to register within the Smart Simple system?
Yeah, we haven't registered yet because I think we need that identification number first. No?
You don't, you can skip that and just say applied today, and we'll deal with the UEI later. So
Oh,
the
okay.
unique entity identifier is a lift. It doesn't have to be a heavy lift, it sometimes is. And so we just say, put in today's date and then continue on. Do you want to try to do that, Lori, while we're talking? Because we're gonna jump into the application form itself. And if you can do that on your end, you know, that might make it easier for you. It might not matter at all, up to you. Do you, is that something that you can do while doing this?
Anything about it?
I have a feeling it'd be distracting.
Okay,
Probably, I think navigating the system, you know, I've done Smart Simple forms before, so
great.
I think probably for both Scott and me to just listen real carefully will probably be best.
Awesome. Okay, good, good, good. Anyone else? Yeah.
Yeah, my link didn't work, the one that was sent to me by Dale. So is that the one that you're referring to for the portal?
Where you should be able to jump onto the Smart Simple thing. All right, well, you already have some extent, so you're kind of in an unusual situation, so we'll
Right.
just go ahead and jump through. Did anyone else have trouble registering, or is everybody else registered? Okay, alrighty. Well then, Caitlin, let's go ahead and skip the registration piece. Lori, I think you're right. You'll probably just move through that just fine.
Okay.
And Jessica, we will figure out with Dale what the heck's going on with your end. Yeah, Caitlin, if you wouldn't mind then, just kind of walking us through the first piece. And so Caitlin's gonna share her screen so you can see what this thing looks like. For those of you who haven't peeked yet. And then I'm going to encourage you, because this thing is going to take up the most space on our screens, and your pictures are going to be on my right in a little, you know, film strip kind of situation. So if you have a question as we're going through, please either raise your virtual hand or just interrupt. That's the joy of having a smaller group. This really is for you and your questions. So we have visual arts, we have performing arts, we have facilities, we have non-facilities in the mix. And so let's just get into it. Caitlin, you want to just share what they're seeing here?
So once you're logged in, you should see your Smart Simple home screen. You will see, because this is a test application, you will see the creation and presentation application under, you know, as a one under funding opportunities. Once you know, and I clicked it, it will be here. You will open it there. Once you've started an application and saved a draft of it, and you're able to sort of save throughout the application process, it'll show up under this in progress section. And I will go ahead and open this draft one. And then once it's opened, you'll see the draft application. And a lot of this is sort of carryover from your registration, just the boilerplate information. But
Caitlin, sorry to interrupt. Thank you. That's, do you all have any trouble figuring out how to identify what your Senate or Assembly district is? That is one of the things that we ask. Does everyone feel comfortable with that question, or is there any questions about that?
No.
No.
Okay, great. Just wanted to make sure. That's up ahead. And is that in the registration piece?
I believe it is.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right.
Yeah. And then, you know, we mentioned the UEI, and Lori, like we said, you can, when you are registering, it'll ask you, you know, have you applied? If you click yes, put today's date is the date that you applied, you can move forward and complete the registration from there. And then once you've obtained it, you can add it here in this kind of applicant information tab, or in your organization profile up here in the right-hand corner.
Okay, great.
And Karen, I'm gonna let you, I can kind of scroll through here. I'm not sure.
Right, so for those of you who have not applied before to anything in our system, that piece of uploading the are they gonna see a fiscal receiver thing here?
You know, I think that as far as I can tell, they do. I'm
Can you
emulating.
just click no? No one here is gonna be
Yeah,
using
I'm
a
gonna
fiscal
just-
receiver.
Yeah.
So get rid of that. It's distracting.
Yes.
Thank you. And then you're going to see this piece under the applicant information tab called community description. This is a place where you get to describe your community and the issues that it is wrestling with, if any, in a way that doesn't take up space within your narrative. So small organizations, those with budgets of 225,000 or less, we consider small budget. Those organizations will have 3 pages of narrative to answer all the narrative questions in. And we base that on planning sessions that we did quite a while back where the smaller people said, please don't make us write a whole lot. So, we haven't. And then the mid-sized organizations, those with budgets of 225,000 to 2 million are mid-sized. And they have 5 pages of narrative with a couple additional questions and support materials that they need to respond to. And then the large organizations, which are 2 million and above, have 6 pages of narrative. So especially if you're a small organization, you don't want to spend a lot of your narrative real estate describing your community. You want to be able to jump in and talk about your work. This section here then is designed to let you say, the community that we're working within, so whether that's a neighborhood in Milwaukee, whether that is a city or region around Oshkosh, whatever that is this. These are issues that we're dealing with as a community, or these are major resources that we have access to in our community, or these are, whatever you want to say that will tell the panel more about the community in which you do your work. This is a way to share that information with them beyond the demographics. You'll be asked to share demographic information here as well at some point. And there it is, actually, that next thing. Nope, it was right underneath that. Yeah. So you've got the community description and then the link to the census information. And so, Caitlin, would you mind just clicking on that link and it'll take you to, let's do it for Hayward, Wisconsin. So we'll go to Hayward. And Laura, you guys are just going to do Milwaukee, and it's just a huge, ginormous set of numbers, but there it is. And so Hayward will take you to a place that will give you and give the panel a sense of, the kinds of demographics that you serve within your community, or at least that have access to your work. And that will be helpful only to a point. So then they'll want to see in the community description how those numbers are contextualized. Jim, do you have any thoughts as a panelist about that? And feel free, don't let me put you on the spot. Feel free to say pass or no, we're good.
No, I do actually. I think early in the application, it is crucial for you to contextualize your information. So talk about not only the community that you serve, but the neighborhood that you serve, or the region that you serve. When I was writing creation and presentation grant applications, I would put the population of my service area in people and cows. Why did I do that? Because understand that panelists are reading these in a stack. They are setting aside time out of their lives to read a bunch of applications. So your application is going to be one among many. And the panelists will, however much they try not to, the panelists will go into what I call a grant reading trance.
Mhm.
they will start looking for for the kind of information that they need over and over. What you want to do is snap the panelist out of the trance. So somewhere early in the process, say something like, we serve 85,000 people and 145,000 cows, or whatever it is that defines your organization, because that snaps the person out of the trance and makes them go, oh, and come back in. The reason I used to do cows is because we were a small city arts program, thanks, Reese, that served a large rural area. So that was a very succinct way of getting that point across without spending a lot of space on it, a lot of time on it. And quite frankly, when you start to describe your program in the narrative, you're going to be writing haiku. So you're going to want to get as much contextual information out early as you possibly can.
Yep. Great. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So let's see, going back, thank you for jumping that out. What's next here?
The activity summary, and these are just estimates here.
And you can, when you're done filling out a page, you can either click that purple Save Draft button at the very end or the very bottom of the page. Caitlin, can you hover over that?
Yeah.
And then, or you can click on the next button. And that's over to the bottom right. And that will take you to the next page too, but you won't want to go to the next page until you save this one for sure. All right, then we get to activity summary, right? And this is, the artist directly involved are those, if you're a presenter, then it's the number of artists that you bring in and put on your stage and they perform with the community, or for the community. If you are an organization that is creating work, like adult show choir or a neighborhood amazing art program or whatever, then you are looking at the number of people that you would identify as artists, not artist participants. So these are artists that these are artists that some would call professionals, or at least people who have a deep experience in their art form, as opposed to those who bring their own artistic energy as participants within your program, but you're not working with them directly until you invite the community in. Does that make sense, Lori? I'm talking mostly to you.
Yeah, let me run this by you then.
Yeah.
So if we had, well, so we have, of course, thousands of people who come in and like inscribe tiles and stuff. So they would be, they'd be participants.
Right. Right.
But our team, even the teenagers who are trained and they are all working together, we conceptualize the design together. They are our artists. Is that right?
Yep. You got it. Thank you. All right. And then I am going to have to put my glasses on. Whew. Adults engaged in person. Okay. So then, and this is then the engagement piece. So it isn't the artists that you're working with who are 18 and older. It is the participants who come in and co-create with you. As presenters, it is your audience. It is the people who come to your workshops or those artist outreach activities. If you're a presenter, that's the kind of thing. And I just realized that I'm not necessarily talking about the Park Theater, Chris. So if you have any questions about, how you guys handle it, since you do a variety of things in your space, throw those questions out for sure. But yes, so that's the difference there. The NEA, our friends at the National Endowment for the Arts, who provide half of our funding. And so we care deeply about what they care deeply about. Also, they just have really good questions. Some of them we are not super fond of asking, but we ask because they need us to. And so that's why we break down a guesstimate of the adults 18 and over who are who are engaged in this, and then the children, so under 18. They need that information. And so to the best of your ability, if you don't, track that via tickets or whatever, we ask for your best estimates here, honestly. Alrighty, and sometimes Jim is a panelist, that is helpful, and sometimes it is less helpful.
That is correct. Often we will look at some of the NEA questions and say, let's ignore that for this at this point.
Yeah, that's
So
not helpful to me.
don't worry about it. The panel will, if it appears to be arbitrary and appears not to be relevant to your situation, we will generally put that aside in our discussion.
Thank you. All right, let's head to the meat of this, which is, oh, wait a minute. Are we on narrative or budget? We're on narrative. Good.
Narrative is next.
Awesome, thank you. And so as I discussed earlier, you belong to one of three groups. And so click on the one that you belong to, because that will give you a different set of narrative instructions. So clicking on the small, then you click on that narrative and a pop-up table will ask the specifics of the questions. And the questions are carefully crafted. Answer as much of it as you possibly can. Answer as many of those bullets as we ask, because the panel is looking for those answers and in that order. And Jim, I'm going to stop. So anyway, we've got those, the number one, what have you done? And then you have that top box, what have you done? So then you kind of address those questions, and then you go down for the next one and all of that good stuff. Jim, I'm going to stop talking so you can insert here.
I think it is important for you to write in your own voice. There is a tendency when you are doing applications to write in some artificial third person. Don't do that. The panelists are people who are passionate about what they do. They want to see your passion about what you do. However, please do answer the questions. If some of them are not relevant to you, you may ignore them. We will pass over them. We may talk about what you didn't say, but we won't penalize you for it. What is most important to me is honesty. Don't pretend to have done something. If you tried something and it didn't work, say, we tried this and it didn't work, and next time we're going to try something else. Maybe we'll try this. Those are that kind of self-reflective progress in the evolution of a program is something that as a panelist, I'm really interested in seeing. But write in your own voice, answer the questions, and the questions are important. I think they're crucial for any organization to think about. What do we do? How do we do it? What difference does it make? And how do we know that it makes a difference? You know, and your evaluation process can be as informal as we have board members in the lobby after the show listening to what people say as they come out, or it can be as sophisticated as pre-testing and post-testing. But make sure that you are thinking about how you know how you're doing.
Thank you. I will say, in addition to everything that Jim just said, and actually, Caitlin, let's pull up that list so we can go through in case there are questions about the specific bullets.
Well, I want to thank you.
when
Thank you, Jim. I want to thank Jim for that recommendation, because as the strictly volunteer run organization, you know, we're still in the stage of just planning for the next show, let alone doing evaluation or other things. And we're ready now. We're really ready to take a bigger step and to be more strategic. And that's what we hope this will help us do. But this will be an opportunity for us to really document what our needs are. And so we will probably be pretty honest that some of this we haven't done.
Be honest. That goes a long way with when I'm reading an application.
And sometimes, as has happened with one organization last year, honesty means that you won't get a grant that year, but you'll get a lot of technical assistance from me and from other folks if you want it to anyway. So that's something to think about. But yeah, trying to sweep stuff under the rug is not, and honestly, these questions are crafted so that hopefully you don't feel like you need to, because this is a retrospective application, which means it's unlike most anything you will be filling out for other funders. We're not asking you to propose a project. We're not asking you to tell us what's going to happen and look in your crystal ball and tell us what's happening in the future or the next year or so. We're asking you to tell us what you have done for the last 2-3 years. What have you accomplished? What are the real things that you can point to? What are the real numbers in your budget? So the reality-based piece of this and the retrospective piece of it, unusual, and it makes it a lot easier than projecting. I will say that as you use your own voice, please don't, it's seldom that the panel will resonate to someone who says, I've done this, because what that leads them to believe, even though you are an individual writing this application, it conveys the impression that you've done all the work and you don't really have an organization, and this really is just you with some nonprofit status doing something that you want to do in your community, which is not the case for any of you. But sometimes when you use the word so I just wanted to clarify that, Jim. I know that isn't what you were saying, but your own voice.
Karen, I have a question about that. Speaking of voice, I've often wondered if it's better to say we have done this or La Familia has done this. It's more natural for me to say the word we, but I've wondered, is there a better way? What's the best voice in terms of?
Jim.
When you're telling a story, often you will go back and forth from those things. You'll start out by saying La Familia to define who you are, and then you may say we later on in the discussion.
Totally fine. Totally fine. Yep. Good, thank you. So Caitlin, is there any way to make this a little bit bigger?
Thanks.
Those questions. So thank you. So the piece about what you've done. This is the first part of the narrative that again kind of grounds the panel in who you are as an organization, what you've done, how many and it doesn't have to be long. How many events do you produce or present each year? Not including rentals is mostly directed to theaters and presenters. Do you pay the vast majority of the artists who perform in your productions or whose work you exhibit or you engage in your programming, basically? How many administratives, and you don't have to say, well, I mean, they only get a $50 stipend or whatever. If you pay them, and that's great. So you'll want to put that out there. How many administrative staff people do you have currently on your payroll? That's for the staffed groups, not for the volunteer run organizations. How many board advisory committee members do you have, and how often do they meet? So again, some boards meet every other month, some meet monthly, some meet quarterly, but they have committee meetings throughout the year. Again, depending on the nature of the organization and its work, the answer is going to differ here. Whatever it is, just again, contextualize this for the panel so they understand the context in which you're doing your work. And then provide an overview of your work to date over the 3 most recently completed fiscal years. So let's talk about both of those pieces of that one. The fiscal year is often the calendar year. So that may be what you guys use as your fiscal year. Some of you may decide that your fiscal year or have chosen for your fiscal year, like ours, to start on July 1st and end on June 30th. However you define your fiscal year is just fine. You will have done that elsewhere in this application, so the panel can see when your fiscal year begins and when it ends. Having decided what that is, if your fiscal year is July 1 through June 30th, then you're done with your fiscal year 24 already. So you can talk in this application that you'll be working on in July, August, September, October, whenever you do it. You can talk about your fiscal year 24, 23, and 22. And you can talk about the work that you have done since July of 21. The panel is going to be most interested in the recent stuff, but if you've got something that happened early on, especially as we're still in this pandemic reverb, that you want to call out to help them understand the value of the work that you have done with your community, go ahead and put it in there. Not needing to talk about something that you did 10 years ago or pre-pandemic, unless there's something that helps contextualize for your current work. And again, this is not where you want to spend pages and pages of time. You want to give some good, strong overviews. You're not going to give 3 years of programming in detail. What you are going to do is give the highlights, and they can be administrative as well as programmatic, right? So you can, if your organization went through a big change, you can talk about that here too, and that's great. And then one of the support materials that you'll upload is past season brochures or past programmatic materials that the panel can look at and go, oh, this is the detail that I wanted to know about that programming. Oh, wow, they really went in depth here, or they did, that kind of thing. So the support materials are the second part of this particular question. Jim, did I forget anything on this one?
Oh, go ahead.
Alrighty. So again, as you're answering that, you're talking about who was involved, maybe, what happened and when and where the activities take place. If you're a Park Theater or a Mabel Tainter or an Oshkosh Opera House, your events are going to happen there. If you are La Familia, maybe the events happen in your studio, Lori, or maybe they happen throughout the neighborhood, or maybe they happen in parks throughout Milwaukee. I don't know. So that's the piece there. Arts education activities, again, those that are really focused on the K through 12 students is what we're thinking about there. But you can also talk about arts education for adults and lifelong learning if you want to do that. Just be clear what you're talking about when if you add some of that material and information into that question. Any questions about that one? But before I move into how did you do it? Alrighty. So this is where Jim's comment about be honest comes into play big time, because we're asking you here to talk about your strengths and your weaknesses. So what are the assets and strengths that your organization has, that have made it possible for you to provide your programs and services over this past little while? And then if there are any particularly significant partnerships that have had a strong impact on any aspect of your work, talk about that too. And then identify those challenges that you have faced over the past 3 years and how you've addressed them. So those organizations that say, yeah, no real challenges, it's all good. It's particularly in this time, that's a remarkable statement, and it could be true, which is fantastic and rare. Most groups will have had some sort of challenge to deal with over the last little while. So this really is just lay it out, because it might be specific to your organization or your region or your village or whatever, and then talk about how you addressed it, or that you're still grappling with it and you'll keep us posted. Well, the what you learned from it, I guess, comes a little bit later. Jim, any comments on 2 before I move to 3?
With all of these, when you are putting forth a challenge, the panel is going to respond to the questions that you ask. So we'll be thinking about, if you articulate a challenge, we'll be thinking about ways that we can suggest you move forward from that challenge.
They can't help themselves. It's true. They're going to do it. And so in the panel comment sheet, which they fill out, and scoring, there's a section on suggestions for the applicant that may or may not have anything to do with the criteria. They might, but they might not. And so because we bring together 5 really smart people, and they have insights into the work in this particular field, and that you are within which you're working. And so if they have suggestions, we want to make sure they feel comfortable offering them. You don't have to take them. You don't have to do anything with them, but they will be there. And the panel will feel much better having shared their thoughts. Speaking as a former panelist for others, I can say that easily. All right. I'm going to move into, unless there are questions about 2, I'm going to move into 3. Alrighty. Describe your organization's public value to your community members and your efforts to broaden or deepen or diversify participation in your activities. We have a glossary that goes deeper into what those terms mean. But basically, if you're serving an audience or engaging community members, and you want to grow that the number of people that you're serving, broaden. Or if you want to not worry about growing, I mean, adding more people, if you do great, but your focus is wanting to deepen that engagement or that experience, then you're talking about maybe taking a performance and doing an artist talk back or an artist residency, or taking the artists into the schools to deepen the experiences of the kids who might be engaged in the performance, or at least in the audience of the performance, or diversify. So if you have an audience that either looks the same or comes from the same income level, or is the same XYZ demographic or whatever, and you want to diversify the demographic mix in your audience or in the community that you serve, then this is where you talk about that. And we encourage whichever of those make the most sense. We encourage growth, and we understand that growth does not mean bigger. It could mean deeper. It could mean, in this time, it could simply be meaning, holding space as the world rocks around us, and continuing to encourage people to build bridges and all of that stuff. However you define that, that's what the panel is going to be looking for here.
So just be clear about what your definition is.
Exactly. So this is where you're going to talk about the impact that you have on your community as a whole. And we are from the Midwest, and we do not brag, it is not seemly. And yet this is what we're asking you to do. We're asking you to, with very clear eyes, say, this is the difference we make. This is the impact we have on our community and with our community. And to think about it maybe in ways that you don't always think about before. We're inviting you to do that. And I am super happy, especially with first-time applicants, to look at a draft of your application and narrative, if you'd like me to do that, as long as you get it to me early enough. I would love to do that. And sometimes that provides a brainstorming opportunity, which is at least neat for me to do. And hopefully beneficial to the applicant as well. How your organization communicates that impact back to the community. So it isn't just, all right, tell us what your impact is. Tell us about that work. Tell us about that difference you make. Now it's, and who do you tell in your community about that? You just told us. Anybody else know? How do they know? We're talking about city council people. We're talking about neighborhood association leaders. We're talking about legislators. We're talking about mayors. We're talking about village administrators. We're talking about people who make zoning. We're talking about whoever in your community really should know that you're doing more than just doing this nice little arts thing off in the corner there. You're doing some deep work. They don't know about it necessarily. So if you haven't been telling people, this is our invitation to do so. You can do it now, actually, before you submit your application if you want to. However you do it, you're not going to get marked down deeply if you're not communicating it, because we do understand that we are from the Midwest, but we are seriously encouraging that to happen, and we want to know about it, and we want to know how you're doing it, whether it's via a letter, an email, going to the city council meeting, going to the neighborhood association, having something on your, if you're a presenter and your lobby says, this is FYI, just so you know, we're celebrating the fact that in fiscal year 2024, 2023, these are how many people we served. This is the number of arts ed activities that we did. This is a story about a difference we made in the life of someone, whatever. I'm giving you a couple of examples. You will have many more because you are creative people, and I'm happy to bounce ideas off if you want. And then the description of how your organization participates or provides leadership on the local, state, and regional levels. This is more, I would say, and Jim, I'll welcome your thoughts on this. This really is more for and encouraging you to realize that you are part of a larger ecosystem, and if it's not you yourself, someone on your board or other authorizers acting in concert with you to do some leadership in the community. Jim, any comments on that?
No two arts organizations are identical. However, there is a lot that arts organizations can learn from one another. And so I would just encourage you to take the opportunity to engage in those opportunities, to come together with other people who are doing maybe something vastly different from what you're doing, but doing it in the context of the arts and the nonprofit arts world. And talk with them about find some similarities, talk with people, find similarities, share your successes, your frustrations, your insights, and your questions. Because your organization will be better for that, and so will all of the other organizations that you touch.
Thank you. And if you're a presenter, you have it easy because you've got the Wisconsin Presenters Network. If you go to a conference, you're providing leadership because you are self-selecting to go into this place and mix it up on the local level and in that case, the state level, with other presenters. Different convenings. Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know what that is. Could you repeat what you just said?
Yes. So if you are a
Go ahead.
presenter, so an organization that takes artists who are touring and presents them in performance on your stage. So like the Marcus Center or Wisconsin Lutheran or the Grand Opera House in Oshkosh or the Mabel Tainter or the PAC in Port Washington. Then there's an organization called the Wisconsin Presenters Network, and they provide this awesome cohort of other presenters around the state who come together and talk about that work in that field of presenting the performing arts. So that was that reference.
Yeah.
All righty. Anything else on that one, Jim, before I jump to the next? All righty. And then how did you know? And this is the piece that can be intimidating. It's the E word, it's evaluation, and it does not have to be intimidating. To Jim's point earlier, I will often tell groups, if you are walking down the grocery aisle in your small community, and whether that's an urban or rural or whatever, and someone stops you and says, hey, that thing that you did, that was awesome, or I really had a question about that, or here's my, and they give you feedback, that's evaluation. You can connect, the dots on how many times someone has stopped me on the street to talk to me about about this organization's work and their impact. That's evaluation. Doing something very formal, hiring outside evaluators to come and look at your programming. That's an option. I would say I don't see that very often anymore, and that's just fine. As long as you can say, these are our goals. This is why we're doing what we're doing. This is what we want to achieve. And then you work backward and say, well, how do we know that we've achieved it? I mean, if we want to help our audience feel more connected to the world because we're bringing in Brazilian music and doing an artist residency in our community for a week and engaging people in different workshops and kids and adults and all that stuff. And the evaluation survey that we put out there is, how did you hear about this? It's not helpful. You're evaluating your marketing and the effectiveness of how you get the word out, not about whether you have actually helped people feel more connected to the world. So whatever it is, make sure that the evaluation work that you do is measuring what's important to you. And I'm not saying you shouldn't measure whether your marketing or getting the word out is effective. You should, but just make sure that it aligns. Does that make sense? Okay. Great. So a description, the planning process is critical to that, right? If you just, if you're reactive and you're just doing stuff and not really kind of planning out why you've selected this artist or why you've chosen to do that public art project or process or whatever, and you're reactive, I mean, that's a choice and that's fine. And we can talk about how that planning happens covertly as opposed to overtly, but we really encourage groups to take a look at the next year, 2, 3 years and say, this is where we want to be in 3 years. It might not look very different than where we are now, or it might look like we're doing different kinds of programming, or we've experimented with different things. And then is that planning process a process that engages your community, the people that you're serving, the people that you're engaging in audience or public art making or whatever? And if so, how? How are you engaging them? Are you putting out a survey? What do you want to see? What do you want to do? Are you putting out, come talk with us over coffee at the local coffee shop? We're looking at potential projects over the next few years and we'd love your input. Whatever that looks like, however you engage your community, and please do. Some groups can just do planning with their board and they say their board members represent their community. And sometimes that's true and that's enough. And sometimes maybe that's a little more limiting than it needs to be. That's your call to make, and then yours to explain or describe to the panel. Jim, you look like you want to say something there.
The first time you do one of these applications, it is unlikely that you have engaged in a formal evaluation process. But the process of talking about your evaluation in this section of the narrative, how did you know, may give you some ideas about how you wish you had information you wish you had when you were writing the grant. What I encourage you to do is to say, we didn't do this before, but going forward, we're going to do this, and then take whatever that insight you got out of writing this section and put that in your planning process for your next program season.
That's a lot, folks. I think there's a little bit more on the next page. Is that right? I see a page 1 of 2 there, Caitlin. Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. La. Okay, we can pull out of this one. And then we can go into budget. The rest, I promise, I know we're running out of time, but that was the meat of it. The rest is pretty straightforward and we'll go over it too, and then answer questions. I can stay on longer. So the budget, this is where you talk about where your fiscal year starts, whether that's January 1st, whether that's May 1st, whether that's September 1st, whatever that is. And then when it ends. And we say year because it won't let us not say a year, but we don't really care what year it is. The month and day are the important thing here. And then edit the operating budget. So what we're looking at, so that the panel can understand how the numbers are this is the numerical half of your, and the narrative is the literary half of your describing what it is you do to the panel and to us. So one way is to describe in words all that you've done, and the other way is to allow the panel to see in numbers what you have done, what you have chosen to invest your resources in over the last 3 years. And so when you click on that editing operating budget, I'm not seeing a pop-up come up, Caitlin, for some reason. Oh, there we go. Yeah, you're gonna, if you're, as I said, if you are on a calendar year, your most recently completed fiscal year is going to be 2023. And then the prior is going to be 2022. And the one before that's going to be 2021. So you're going to be giving us from your IRS 990 forms. So from those forms that you turn into the International Revenue Service as part of your keeping your nonprofit status and reporting at the end of the year, you're going to be giving us the numbers from that. How many of you do not do a 990? Or how many of you have organizations with budgets below 50,000, so your 990 is just a postcard? Anybody? I can't actually see everybody because, is there anybody that's that small that doesn't do a full-on 990? Okay. Alrighty. So
Center Stage is just getting to the $50,000 annual budget. So we haven't necessarily done them in the past, done a full-blown one.
Okay. So in your case, thank you for saying that. What you're going to be doing is in the support materials section, when you upload your financial documentation, instead of uploading your last 3 years of IRS 990s, you're going to be uploading an Excel sheet or a Word sheet or something that shows what your last fiscal year's expenses were and what your income was. You don't have to go into deep details. We don't need to know, you know, that your postcards cost $60 and your flyers cost $80. You know, you can put mark whatever, right? But
Right.
but to have some level of detail so the panel can see where your expenses have been and where your income sources are, whether that's earned revenue, whether that's individually contributed income, whatever it is. And you'll want that, and you'll want them to match, but they don't always match. I mean, real numbers are real numbers,
Yeah.
right? So,
Right.
if they don't match, it's perfectly fine. Sorry, I was wearing my Creative Communities hat for a minute there. So whatever they are, just put those real numbers out there. Here's a little bit of a wrinkle. If you do submit IRS 990s, then what we are asking you to do is upload the most recently completed one, and then the two before that. So, you know, Oshkosh Opera House, not really an issue for you. We have pretty much all of yours because you've been applying regularly. But generally speaking, if your last completed fiscal year was, let's say your July 1 through June 30. So your last recently completed fiscal year was fiscal year 24. There's no way you've turned in your IRS 990 form yet. Well, there is a way, but hardly. It would be unusual for you to have gotten that already done by October, which is the deadline here. In that case, what we're asking for is the IRS 990 from 2023. So whatever you have your most recently completed IRS 990 form from, whatever that year is, we're looking for that one. And then the two IRS 990s preceding that. Those are the real numbers that we can be accountable for as funders. We can say, these are the real numbers of these organizations. And then you just talk about your finances related to those years, even if it doesn't include the most recently completed fiscal year, because you don't yet have your IRS 990 for that. Is that as clear as mud? And is there anything I can say that can clarify that more? Does that make sense?
It makes sense.
Okay, good.
This is Reese. I have a question.
Yeah.
If we were to go back 3 years, we would be going back 2023, 22, and 21. 2021 was COVID.
Yep.
We virtually stopped.
Yep.
We couldn't do anything.
Yep.
Our revenue will show thousands of dollars, and then all of a sudden we'll show much less.
Just
do you
say
want
that.
us to still show that, or do you want us to show another year? Still show it, okay?
And
Yep.
so, Reese, here's the thing. Thank you. You can close this one. Kate. Oh, there's also an in-kind column, by the way. If you track in-kind contributions and the value of those, please put that in that column. That's another way for the panel to understand how your community supports you. But it isn't cash in, cash out. So not every group does that, but if you do it, and I totally encourage you, if you can, put it in there. If you don't, that's fine. Make sure you save when you're closing that thing. And then there's this beautiful box down there. Oh, the average revenue, you won't fill that out. The system will calculate that for you. So don't worry about that box. Right below that, explain how many surpluses or debt or whatever. This is where you talk about the fact that, as a reminder, 2021 was during the shutdown. And therefore, you know, so this is where you can give that context. It's also where if you are looking at, you know, 24 to 23, and there's a massive jump or decline in income or expenses, this is where you talk about that. If there's a significant change, the panel's going to want to know, what's the story behind that? Is that something to celebrate? Is that something to be concerned about? What's going on? So that's what this is for. All
Yes,
righty.
please put something in there. If your numbers are not identical from year to year, please put some explanation in there. One other thought with regard to budget, please, if you refer to financial information in your narrative, make sure it matches what's in the budget, because if it doesn't, we're going to say, huh?
Yes. Yes, thank you. And so the numbers you put in this box, or this little pop-up thing, should be the numbers that the panel also sees when they look at your 990. For sure. Yep. All righty. So let's go down. Okay, we're next at board and staff. And this is where, if you click on that edit board members, this is where you're going to identify who's on your board. And Caitlin, if you could open that up, there are a couple of other columns there. what they do, you know, so kind of in a way, occupation really is, if their occupation is relevant to their board service. So whether that's financial manager, whether that is, you know, neighborhood association leader, whether that, whatever that is, go ahead and put that there. It will give the panel an idea of the mix of folks that you've got on your board right now. What city they're from. If you are from a regional organization, that's relevant. If you're from Milwaukee and very focused on Milwaukee based, it's probably going to say Milwaukee the whole time. It's fine. And then their arts interest / affiliation. You'll have a mix of those. Probably people come to this work with a different with love of different art forms. So whatever that love of different art forms is, whether they are excited about visual arts, whether they're excited about pottery, whether they're excited about music, whether they're excited about world music, whatever that is. You can also say general if they just love everything and you're just incorporating them because of that. That's totally fine. And then the years that they have served on your board. That will be helpful to the panel to give a sense of what the turnover and succession planning and engagement of new board members is within your organization. And then, yep, does your organization have paid or volunteer staff? Park, you're going to be volunteer staff. Most of the rest of you will be paid staff. And then we have a really interesting question that just came up recently, and that is, are any of your board members paid for what they do within the organization? That has always been a verboten. It's you need to separate out, you know, board members should not be paid for, but as time has shifted and as organizational work, specifically in smaller communities and smaller organizations, when everyone's wearing lots of hats, if you're a board member, but you're also, you know, being paid to be the janitor or the whatever of a space, or you're being paid to do, I mean, if you're the treasurer, please don't be paid to be the CPA. That is not, that's not a healthy situation. But this is a question that has come up enough times that we now ask you the question. It can be yes or no, and it's totally fine. If it is yes, then you just talk a little bit about what that is. Did I miss a hand up? Very good.
Reese doesn't know how to put the hand up, but if I could ask a question.
Absolutely.
If we would call them staff that we pay or paid contractors, they are not employees. Does that make a difference?
So this is administrative staff we're talking about.
Oh, we have none. Yeah. Okay.
And sometimes artistic staff, right?
Yeah.
So this is someone that is paid to do, like, if you're paying an artistic director of the, oh, go ahead, Jim.
Conductor, pianist, accompanist, choreographer.
We do include them.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. And our director, we include his wages as well.
Yes.
Thank you. That's what I needed to know.
Yep. All righty. And this really is about, this really is the administrative piece. So it really is not about the artistic staff that we're talking about here. Keep going down for a minute. Can you do the edit staff there? Thank you. Great. Yeah. Because we're going to talk about key artistic and administrative staff in a little bit here. But yeah. That's interesting. Jim, I mean, if you have a choreographer on staff, right? If you have that person should be here as well. So I need to rethink how we're phrasing that question. But again, it's not people that you contract with for, like if you're doing a season of performances and you're contracting a choreographer for one of those performances or one of those programs, that's
we aren't.
Yeah, that I wouldn't put that in as paid staff.
Right.
That's paid contractors. If you're paying the artists who are on your stage, that's not paid staff. Those are paid artist fees. Next into accessibility. Or did we get them all on this page, Caitlin? Sorry. Okay, good.
Yeah, that was all of them.
All right, thank you. How do you let the broader public know? So this is the marketing question, that top box. Where do the majority of your organization's activity occur. This is where you talk about, you know, in our space, which is at this address, or this is in our neighborhood, which is in this portion of our community or whatever. And then referencing the census information. And this is where we move into how you're serving people with disabilities. This is an area of interest not only to the National Endowment for the Arts, but to us as well. And the answer will vary depending on the organization and the nature of its work. But this is the number. You'll pull this number from that demographic, that census piece that we looked at earlier. And then you're going to talk about whether your facilities are accessible via whatever those things are that she's clicking on that are way too small for me to see right now. We've got, parking, entrance, restrooms, level access, signage, and then accommodation for service animals. You don't have to have accommodation for service animals. It is something that some groups are making efforts to do, and so we wanted to call it out as such. And then explain any unchecked boxes. Yeah, we don't have to, people don't have to explain why they don't have accommodation for service animals. So I need to think about that again. That may stay within this application form, or we might tweak that one. We'll see. Programs are, but they do need to have accessible restrooms. They do need to have accessible, you know, entryways and all of that stuff, because that is critical. If you are in an older space and you don't have access for people with wheelchairs to get into the programming, this is where you talk about what accommodations you're going to be offering to make sure that they still have access, or what work you're planning on doing within that facility to make it accessible for people in wheelchairs down the road. So here's some other ideas on accessibility for you to consider, and then a box that says, what, you know, tell us if we haven't asked the right question, what else do you do to engage people with disabilities in your work? And then we have the work sample. If you're a presenting organization, you can close your ears. You don't need to provide that. If you are an organization that engages in public art, engages your neighborhood in art making, engages an exhibit season or whatever in your space, then this is an opportunity for you to upload. You could upload a video of the art making that you do. You could upload a series of 10 digital images showing the quality of the artwork that you produce with your community and the types of work that you produce. You could, if you were a music group, this would be a place for you to upload an audio recording of some of the work that you've created. That's what this is. And there's a lot of text here, because depending on what the work sample you choose, you know, there's its own kind of set of explanations. The digital images, if we could just click on one of those, Caitlin, I just want to make sure that we can go over that, the metadata piece.
Yeah, we don't have any uploaded here.
Okay,
I could like try to add my headshot here.
Add your headshot. That's awesome. That'd be great. Thank you.
Let's see.
Awesome. Okay, so then you've uploaded an image, and now you go into that middle button with the pen, and you talk about the title of the piece. If there is a title of the piece, the year that that piece was created, and a description of it. And then if it's a photograph, do we not have who the title of the photographer, Caitlin?
We used to, but maybe we should say in the description to please note that in the description section.
Yeah, we'll figure that piece out. Okay. Alrighty. Actually, that might be the final report stuff. I can't remember. It's been a long day.
I think it is
Starting
the
to fade.
final
Sorry,
report.
folks. I can only
think it
imagine
is.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Again, descriptions for how to upload videos, audios, literary works. If you're going to submit like a piece that you've published with your community or your organization or whatever, a description of what those are, and then let's jump into support materials. And I think we're only going to be, oh, Jim, you've got to have something to say about the work samples, I'll bet.
No, actually,
Okay,
they're always fascinating. That's all I can say.
awesome.
Because
Yeah,
they're
I mean,
always different.
yeah, what you choose to submit tells something, tells the
Yeah.
panel something about the pride that you take in the work that you are creating or presenting. Although, as I said, presenters don't need to do work samples.
But
They
if you-
submit their season brochures instead, so the panel can take a look at the artists that they've presented on their stages.
Sorry, with regard to musical organizations, dance organizations, and
Thank you.
organizations that are going to submit either audio or video files, don't get too concerned about the production quality. We understand that there are variations in production quality. But if it's but alert us to the fact that that this was taken by a parent from the back of the auditorium.
And depending on the organization and the applicant, the panel will say, I expected better. I
Yeah.
expected that this organization would invest more resources into documenting this amazing work that they create.
Yeah.
So it really depends again on a number of factors. But to be really honest, as Jim has said throughout, and I concur, just tell it like it is, and the panel will respond as honestly as they do. All right, I want to
Excuse
jump
me,
in.
Karen.
Yeah.
You're using the term presenting organizations don't have to. I would think that an organization
you.
that does plays and music, not us.
That's not you.
You're
You're not a presenter, Reese.
I'm not a presenter. Okay,
No.
that's what I
You're a
needed to know.
producing organization, Reese.
We're producing. Okay, thank you.
Yep. Okay. Required financial documentation. This is where you upload your IRS 990s or your Excel sheets or Word sheets with your annual income and or revenue and expenses. And you also upload your key artistic and administrative personnel bios here. So this is, it can be a really short paragraph, but again, it lets the panel know who you consider your key artistic and admin people who run this organization and keep it moving and keep connecting with the community and all of that. So it's another way to introduce the people who make all of the work happen. Most recent and current season exhibit brochures. Again, presenting organizations, this is where you'll upload your 2024-25 season brochure if you have it already, and your 2023-24 season brochure. And that will be good. And then, oh, Caitlin, we should say, if you choose to submit electronic instead of hard copy, we got to delete that because there is no hard copy.
Yes.
There is no hard copy. Oh, this is so
Okay.
helpful. Thanks, y'all, for letting us walk through our application form. Letter of commitment from significant partner organizations. That is only for organizations that, like, if you are based, if you're doing work and there's no way for you to do the work without a partner organization, and I don't mean a funder, I mean someone else who's either providing critical volunteers or performance space or exhibit space or ways to connect in with the community centers in your community, you know, whatever the nature of your work, you may or may not have a significant critical partner. If you call one out, this is in your narrative as you describe the work that you do. This is a place for that partner to upload, for you to upload a letter from that partner saying, yes, we absolutely do partner with this organization in this way, and it's really important to us. So not everybody has a letter like that. Yeah, Jim.
But if you do, let me give a specific example. There was an organization in a community whose work was specifically facility-based, and there was no indication in their budget that they had any money that supported that facility. We were able to infer from the other information that they provided that they lived in the local library. It would have been exceedingly helpful for us had they called that out and had the library submit a letter which said, we're delighted to host this organization doing good work in the community. We spent a lot of time talking about that because it was very confusing not to
And
have
your scores reflected it. And
Yes,
so
it did.
their grant amount reflected that. I think, because of that possibly. So yes, thank you. Organizational plan. Again, depending on your group and how it does its planning, you will either upload a one pager that kind of describes what you're planning. So this is the plan that has the written plan that has informed your work, your current work, your recent work over this period of time, and maybe a little bit of your future work. So we're not looking to see a plan for 25, 26, 27. We're looking to see an organizational plan that has guided your work in 24, 23, 22, something like that. Chris, thank you for joining us. And so sometimes those are detailed and long, and sometimes those are one pagers that basically say, this is our vision, these are our goals, and this is what we're going to have accomplished, you know, by the end of this period of time, whatever that period of time is. There are, every now and then we'll get groups where the planning is done in the heads of the boards and the artistic directors, and they're not written down, except maybe if they keep board minutes. There are snatches of information related to that in the minutes. This is our opportunity to encourage you and them to put it down in writing and then to revisit it at board meetings or gatherings as just a grounding practice in just making sure we're aligning and we're accepting the opportunities that we said we wanted to, that are guiding us along the path that we said we wanted to be, or that we've created a path that is such that if we see an opportunity that is so amazing, then it's an intensive, or it's an intentional decision to say, even though we were going this way, this is too good an opportunity for us not to have a thoughtful discussion about. And then as an organization say, okay, we're going to take this, which is going to take us off the planned route. But we all agree that that's the right thing for our organization and our community. You know what I mean? I just went down into the weeds on that one, but a written version of your planning would be great to see here, is all I'm trying to say. All right. I think that is that the last thing on this, Caitlin? Oh, nope, there's more. But wait, you also get, keep scrolling all the way down.
You pocket fisherman.
Yeah, right. The sample evaluation for, so this is, if you do surveys, if you do something like that, then this is a chance for you to go ahead and upload that so the panel can get a sense of what you are evaluating and how you're doing it. And then these are optional. If you do an exhibit catalog, if you do, you know, whatever. And again, depending on who you are and what your questions are as you get to this point, I'm happy to bounce ideas off and talk about what some of those other options might be. Okay, the final thing is the certification, and that is you saying, as the writer of this application, I can tell you that I can legally obligate this group. I'm not a maverick board member who's just decided we're going to do this and no one else on the board knows. This is you saying, I've got this. I can commit the organization, and everything that I have said in this application is true. And then you use your mouse to create a completely indecipherable scrawl. If you're like me, in that box that's right there. Yep, that's it. And then you make sure to ooh, I see remove and restore. Do they ignore those and just do save?
I think you can delete what's there. I'm not sure what restore does. It might be if you accidentally delete it, but
Funny.
save draft down here and then submit.
Save draft as often as possible. That was a lot. We've gone 15 minutes over what I thought we would. You guys had such good questions, and I bet there are more. So if you are not completely exhausted and want to ask some of those questions, please do that. And if you just want to catch your breath and ask me later on this week or in August, that would be fine too.
Yeah, I do have one question for you.
Yeah.
You were suggesting not doing that too close to when everything needs to be submitted. So we would love to have more dialogue, but what's reasonable, what's fair, not
Yeah.
like the.
So happy to dialogue as you're forming this thing anytime from, let's say, August 14th on. I would like to have a draft of your narrative if you want to run that by me. I'd like to have that by, let's say, September 26th, whatever 2 weeks before the deadline is. Even if it's a rough draft, I can at least give you some feedback. And if it's finally honed and you're feeling really good about it, then we can get deeper into it, and then you can submit it early. It's okay to submit it early. Great if you would submit it early. We actually have had some groups submit in July, and if they have what they need, that's fantastic. Then check it off and you don't have to worry about it.
Great. All right, good. This is really helpful. Yeah.
I'm glad. That's great. Any other questions from those who have been so quietly taking notes? We covered everything. Okay. Fantastic. Thanks
Awesome.
you all. I know it's
Thanks.
kind of hard on a beautiful July afternoon to spend time on Zoom, but I appreciate the opportunity and the good questions.
Yeah, likewise.
Thank you. very much, Chris.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, take care. Thank you,
you.
Caitlin.
Yeah,
Thank you,
thanks,
Jim.
everyone.
Oh my gosh, Jim, thank you so much. Appreciate your voice. All righty.
I
Take
was
care.
12 or 15 minutes over though, so there you go.
Thanks, Jim.
Bye.
Thank you both.